It's an inevitability that when you get on the internet and start consuming media and reading media and just, anything that has to do with bass fishing in general, you're going to come across some people that are just straight up telling bass fishing myths. There's a lot of people out there that are saying things that I don't even think they're certain are true, but they're saying them just to put them out into the world. And so in today's video, I want to break 3 myths or bust 3 myths for you guys that pertain to bass fishing specifically. The first one is going to be that bass feel pain. That's actually untrue. A bass does not even have the part of the brain that they need to feel pain. Now, a bass can feel pressure and it can feel changes in temperature, but it does not have the nerve endings nor the part of the brain to receive, signals from those nerve endings to feel pain like we feel pain. Like if we prick our finger, we cut our finger, we break a bone, our body is full of so many nerve endings that will fire off and shoot signals to our brain that say, hey, you're in pain and you don't need to be in this situation anymore, get away from something. A bass doesn't have that. The thing that makes a bass actually fight isn't pain that it feels, but it's just the pressure of being pulled in a direction that its little instinctual brain does not want to go. So when you jab that hook in their mouth or you hook them with a crankbait and you actually start to reel them towards you, that fighting sensation is simply something has grabbed a hold of me, i.e. whether it's a human, an otter, a herring, an eagle, and it's trying to pull me away from my home. I need to fight back. That's all that is. They're not fighting because they're in pain. They're simply fighting because they're not, or being pulled in a direction that they don't want to go. Another thing that'll make a bass move, and most of the time they move a little bit slower than they do faster, are changes in temperature, and especially water temperature. It's how bass dictate a lot of what goes on in their life. When they spawn, when they eat, when they move deep, when they move shallow, when they move up into current, when they move out of current, a lot of it is dictated by water temperature, and it's because they can actually feel the changes in that water temperature. But again, they don't feel pain. So keep that in mind. Next time, some like animal rights activist or your buddy or whoever it is, your girlfriend, your wife, your grandma goes, oh, that poor little fish, he feels pain. You can actually look at them and say, actually, a bass doesn't even have a part of the brain that feels pain. So the more you know. The next one is going to be that bass eat all day long. Now, this is kind of both a truth and a myth because there are times that bass do eat all day long, but there are other times of year during certain bites, certain periods of, the year, seasons, water temperatures that bass actually bite in a super specific window of time. One that I can think of right off the top of my head is during the shad spawn. Those shad get up early, like super early in the morning, like right at daybreak, and they'll spawn from about daybreak until about 8, 9 o'clock, as soon as the sun's completely up in the sky. And those bass will eat within that time frame because the food is available to them. The food's right up in their face. It's easy to access. And then when that food leaves and when that food quits doing the thing that is easy for the bass to consume, they'll back off and they won't feed. And I've seen so many times where I'm fishing a shad spawn where I have such a small window to catch those bass in. Those bass will feed really early in the morning or really late in the evening, and then they won't feed the rest of the day. And so just keep that in mind. When you're fishing certain times of year, bass aren't going to eat all day. There may be a window in which you catch the most bass or the biggest bass, and you got to kind of take note of that, put that in your Rolodex of different ideas that you have for bass fishing that'll help you guys to catch more bass on the back end. And then the last one is going to be that bass only eat in warm weather. There's a lot of fair weather fishermen out there, and there's a lot of fishermen who only fish during the spring and summer months. And then as soon as the fall rolls around, the winter rolls around, if they're able to, they put the boat in the garage and they don't get it back out. Now, some of you guys obviously live up north, your lakes freeze and stuff like that, so it gets harder to catch bass unless you want to drill a hole in the ice. But the thing is, bass eat all year long. And so it doesn't matter if it's super hot, if it's super cold. The bass don't just eat in the warm months. They also eat in the cold months. And then for me, the fall and the winter and the early spring when the waters are the coldest around me is really when I have the most success bass fishing because I get to do some of my favorite things, which is throw reaction style lures, drag a jig and do stuff like that and get those bass to eat. And so keep that in mind. If you're one of those people that you're just getting into bass fishing, you're brand new to bass fishing and you're kind of thinking, hey, can I only bass fish for like May, June, and July? No, bass will eat all year long. You just may have to adjust your tactics and what you're doing depending on the water temperature. Again, going back to what we talked at the beginning, bass do feel water temperature changes. You may have to change your tactics because the bass will actually change what they're eating, when they're eating it, and how they're eating it depending on the water temperature. So if you want to watch a video I did about water temperature and why, it's probably one of the most important things in bass fishing, click this video, it's popping up right here.